All right, so Redgrave, I've asked you because we've done something together, kind of, in a way. I made a Hot Wheels AcceleRacers video, and you recently made a Hot Wheels AcceleRacers video. So why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. So I am Antonio Redgrave. I am a YouTuber, Twitch streamer, recently renewed Hot Wheels AcceleRacers fan. I just recently passed 20,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel, which was so awesome.
Congratulations.
This is the first time I'm actually publicly saying that too. Thank you. And I'm sure that Hot Wheels AcceleRacers had a small part to play in that. I'm sure. But for me, my Hot Wheels AcceleRacers journey kind of took a break when the series just kind of stopped, obviously. And only recently, over the past maybe year and a half or so, did I start to revisit the series because I had one of those nostalgia bomb moments where I was like, oh hey, I remember Hot Wheels AcceleRacers and it was really cool. So I decided to do a rewatch of it, and then I looked up AcceleRacers on YouTube and fell into this giant rabbit hole of retrospective videos and fan theories and all of this other stuff. And then obviously the Hot Wheels AcceleRacers Reddit, which also made me go into a deep dive on all of the theories and all of the Reddit posts and stuff like that. So I thought that it would be fun to make my own video, and that's exactly what I did, and I had a fun time with it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought that you brought an interesting take to the series, and just, you telling your story about how you fell in love with the series as a kid. I really enjoyed that. I think that's one thing that's missing from a lot of these retrospectives, that I think you and me did a really good job on it, where you explained how it was as a kid and why it was so cool and stuff, so I really liked that.
Yeah, you can only see so many different videos where it just retells the story of AcceleRacers before it gets a little tedious. Sometimes it's fine, other times it's okay, this is the sixth video where you're just talking about what each realm does, and it's I appreciate the retrospective videos where you add sort of your own personal take on it. So and that's, again, like you said, that's the reason why I wanted to do mine, because I had a lot of personal experiences with it and a lot of fun personal stories. And I think the idea kind of sparked for me when I was just I was rewatching it, right? And then I was on my Twitch stream and I was just like, hey, do you guys know what Hot Wheels AcceleRacers is? And everyone was like, are you on drugs? What are you talking about? So I had to be, I went down the rabbit hole on stream, and I was like, it would just be better if I just made a video on this, and I could just go watch this video about AcceleRacers. And I gotta say, it is awesome that the entire series is just on YouTube, 4K upscaled quality. It is so nice. I didn't have to, go get my DVDs downstairs and take the 5-second walk to put it into my PlayStation and then sit back down on the couch. I can just watch it whenever, and that's really great. I'm sometimes I fold laundry and I'm like, you know what, I just need some background noise. I'm gonna put on Hot Wheels AcceleRacers.
See, I didn't realize that they put them back on YouTube, because when I was doing my video, I had to go to Internet Archive and get the footage from there, because the channels were starting to get struck down at that time. And so when I did my video, we had JC Squared on for our little show, and he was like, there's no way you're passing YouTube's copyright. And I did on the first one, surprisingly enough, but it wasn't until after that those got uploaded again.
I was actually going to ask about that too, because I remember seeing it, and then I couldn't find it, and then I found it again, and I thought that was really weird. So I'm assuming that maybe it was in copyright limbo, or they just made a new channel or something. I'm assuming it's the copyright limbo thing, because I think it is the same channel that uploaded it, if I'm not mistaken.
Mattel struck them down or something like that, which, I mean, it's understandable. It's the full movies, but it's cool that they're up-resed and 4K'd and stuff.
So I gotta say this, just speaking on that. So when I uploaded my first draft of the video, the day that it was supposed to release, I got a claim on it.
Really?
And I was so about it, dude. Because again, your video didn't get claimed, right? I saw all of these other videos, they weren't getting claimed. So I was thinking, okay, I can't just upload the full movie but I'm assuming if I like had like a 10-second snippet, 20-second snippet or something or whatever, that I'd be fine. And so here's the discovery that I made, and I'm not really sure if this is like a hard set rule or I just got really lucky. So Mattel, if you're listening, please get out. I don't need you messing with our livelihoods. So I had a clip, my favorite clip of AcceleRacers ever. It's such like a niche thing, but my favorite scene starts from when Vert and Kurt are in the storm realm and they're approaching like the giant lightning ball of death, and it ends right when Kurt's car crashes. I don't know why. There's something about that scene that just kind of like, it gives me like the dopamine, you know? Like, it's the thing that if I had an alarm clock and it projected that scene onto my wall every single morning, I'd wake up perfectly happy and healthy and ready to start the day. Like, I love that scene that much. I don't know why. So what I did for my video is there was a certain section in there where I was like, I'm going to show you a clip of this just to show you how awesome this show really is. And I started from, I think it was when, like, right when they were about to go into the lightning ball of death, like literally right before, and ends right before Vert's car crash. And that got claimed. And I was like, what the heck? So I went to look at it to try to like just trim it out and whatever. But then I realized that there were other portions of it that also got claimed after the fact. So I think what happened, and it was only Ignition. Every single scene that I had from Ignition had like a little like timestamp on it where it was like, you need to take this out, take this out, take this. And I thought it was so weird because it started with that one. So I think the way that the YouTube bot worked was that it recognized that that one scene, like the 20 seconds or whatever that I used, maybe it was even less than that, was from Ignition, and then it found everything else that was from Ignition, and it told me to take everything else out. So I was messing around with just that one clip because I really wanted to put that clip in. Like, I turned down the volume, I put like blue bars on there, I put in a middle finger in the middle of the screen just to just to get rid of anything, and it wouldn't pass. So I was like, all right, fine. So I just took that section out, uploaded it again, had no issues. Nothing from Ignition was claimed again. There was another section that I kind of trimmed, like it was like, you know, 3 seconds cut, 3 seconds cut, 3 seconds cut. It's like where the drone is ripping Tesla's car out, and that didn't get claimed either. So I was like, it's so weird that this one scene got claimed, because I also have the 10 to 15 second explanation of an Apex that's in Breaking Point that didn't get claimed. So I thought it was super weird. So I don't know if it's like Mattel only has Ignition claims, like the Ignition for the YouTube claim stuff, or if I just got really lucky with the Apex. I don't know, but it's something that I thought it was so annoying because I was like, man, like, yeah. Anyways, that's just the YouTube copyright system and just how it is. But
I don't know. I've been actually fairly lucky with YouTube copyright. The only video that gave me a nightmare and I had to upload it like 16 times was Pacific Rim. I did a video on that, and that was a nightmare. That was the worst one I've ever had. Other than that, it's like maybe once I'd have to re-upload it. But other than that, I've really had no issues with copyright. Really bad. Hot Wheels, first time I uploaded it was fine. Even the trailer edits that I did for Hot Wheels, no issues. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that it's a combination of putting, like I said, the video and the sound, like just like an actual clip that's like more than maybe 30 seconds. But I thought it was so weird that they were fixated on the one clip that I wanted to show to emphasize my point about how cool the show was, and they were like, no, we don't want you to see how cool the show is. No. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
We'll show you all the other like boring clips of like Dr. Tesla almost actually dying, or explaining what an Apex is, but like this cool like giant lightning spear ball death thing, no, you don't get to show that. And I was like, well, all right, you're lost then. But if I watch that video, like you'll see roughly where the clip is because I talk about it, but there's like, I couldn't do anything to fix this even when I was like editing it in Premiere, but there's like a really weird, like, it's almost like a jump scare with the sound, but that's the clip of that I was showing ending. It sounds like a lightning strike because it's a lightning strike, where the clip ends, but then I start talking again, but it's so abrupt because that's where the edit was, and every time I like look back and listen to it, I get jump scared by the lightning strike, even though I know it's there, because it's just so abrupt. And it's like, it's one of those things where like, I'm assuming if someone listened to it for the first time, they'd be like, what the heck was that? That was so weird. But that's why that's there. And it's like the one blemish on the video where I was like, man, I wish I could have fixed that just from like a technical perspective.
Yeah,
but,
I feel
yeah,
you on
no,
that. When you look back on some of your videos, and maybe you had to I know I had to take out a piece of when I covered Voltron. The intro for the American version is copyrighted to death, so it had to blip it out, and it kind of like starts up and then it just cuts back to me talking about it. It's kind of weird. That's bad, but
that's YouTube.
I know.
But hey, you know, if Mattel wants to continue making bank on AcceleRacers, they can get like the 5-cent ad revenue that that they'll get. And I mean, you know what? Good for them. So, in fact, they should be splitting the revenue with that one person that's uploading, or that has the 4K advanced whatever uploads, because I mean that's I think the main thing that's preserving AcceleRacers right now on YouTube, because I'm sure that there are other ways to find it, but that is the most convenient way in my opinion to find it, especially because it is 4K upscaled.
Yeah. So I guess let's start with how we came into Hot Wheels, and we can get in from there. So for me, when I got into Hot Wheels, I was pretty young. I was a train kid, so that kind of slowly got into Hot Wheels and cars and things that moved, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I forgot what it was, but I walked into a family video one time, and they had the VHS copy of the prequel movie, which is World Race. And that one I rented to death as a kid. I would rent that over and over and over again. And then it just so happened that later down the road, the Swamp Track, the Hot Wheels Swamp Track, I actually had that physical track set, and my dad purchased that for me. So I had like the Dragon Car, and you know the Swamp Guy talked on the track. And it wasn't until a few years later that I found out that there was a television show all about that specific track set, and that continued the World Race. So it was like this really weird deja vu, because I started with the third movie, and all of a sudden, you know how it starts on that shot of like Vert Wheeler on the sunset and stuff. I'm like, what? Like, this is a continuation of World Race? And then
you're like, oh, what's Vert Wheeler been up to? Oh, he sucks in this show.
Yeah.
He is such a bad racer.
Or like it then shows like the Dragon Car, and then like it flashes back to the Swamp Realm. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like more stories that are being told.
Yeah,
like I was freaking out. And so for me, that show has always been something that's really nostalgia. I kind of fell off the series too once I got a little older, but then I started feeling a little more nostalgia for it, because I never really give away anything. So when I was doing my Speed Racer video, I just kind of mentioned in it where, you know, some of these Speed Racer tracks kind of remind me of how F-Zero is, or Mario Kart 8 tracks, or Hot Wheels AcceleRacers tracks. I said it like really briefly, and like all of a sudden I'm getting like 50 comments of people like, you mentioned AcceleRacers, like, oh my goodness. So I'm like, well, I guess I got to do a video on Hot Wheels AcceleRacers. And the reason I did my video the way it is because if I'm being honest with you, there's people that are describing the show, but there's not a single video out there yet, at least probably, I haven't watched a ton, that went over the history of how it was made and how it came to be from Jeff Gomez and stuff. So it was super hard because there's all sorts of conflicting information, and it's everywhere. Like there's stuff on this Wikipedia. This Wikipedia has different nonsense. Jeff Gomez is saying this on a podcast, but then he'll say something like this on another. So you try to cram it all together, and it took me forever to do. But I mean, that's how I made my video, and that's how I came to love Hot Wheels.
See, and I think I love how you mentioned AcceleRacers one time. It's like one of those things where AcceleRacers is such like a, you know, it was so cool when it first came out, and like as the series progressed, and then, you know, obviously it got Thanos snapped out of existence, and everyone's like just dying for more AcceleRacers content. So when it's like a trigger word, you hear AcceleRacers, everyone's like, whoa, this guy mentioned AcceleRacers. We got to talk about AcceleRacers now. I mean, in a speed racer video too, that's like the perfect place to do it as well.
I know, and I was just like, I mentioned it for like 2 seconds.
Yeah. So my story is, I actually mentioned this in my video.
Mm-hmm.
I had just turned 6, and that's when Highway 35 came out on VHS. So I feel like I had to have gotten it for like my birthday or Christmas. Like I got it like shortly around that time, and just like you, I was watching it over and over and over again. I absolutely loved it, and I don't know how exactly I got into AcceleRacers, but I think like it had to have been on TV, or I was watching like Cartoon Network or something, and I made the association of like, oh, this is the same show. This is like a continuation. But before I even got into Highway 35, like my parents bought me like trains and cars and all of that stuff, and like I would obviously play with them because I was a small child who needed that entertainment. But I was always a kid who like loved watching television and movies, and that was like a big part of just me growing up. Is like my mom and we would watch cartoons and stuff like that, like the Saturday morning cartoons, and that's how I got into Ninja Turtles, actually, was because of the Saturday morning cartoons.
Oh,
but
okay.
that's for the Ninja Turtles podcast.
Exactly.
But the same thing happened for Highway 35. I got the VHS, I watched the VHS, and then I wanted the cars that were in the VHS so I could recreate the realms and like recreate all the different tracks and pretend to drown Taro in a vat of lava, that sort of thing, right? And then AcceleRacers came out, and I was like, oh, Dr. Tesla almost died. This is going to be very interesting. I started having nightmares about the racing drones.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah, because it just shocked me that much. And, like, I'm not going to do the math about how old I was. I had to be, like, 8, maybe, if it was, like, what was it? It was 2000 and... oh my god, when did AcceleRacers come? 2005, right?
Something like that. It's been a while since I did the video.
Yeah, so I would have been like 7 or 8. So yeah, those guys traumatized me a little bit, but what I really loved about the show, again, wasn't necessarily the cool racetracks and stuff. It was the characters. Like I immediately went, "Oh, that's Vert Wheeler. Oh, that's Kurt Wilde." Like, and oh, that's supposed to be Taro Kitano. He looks a little different, but I'm vibing with it, that sort of thing. Like, that's the connection that I made, and that's why I loved it so much. And then kind of fast forwarding to, AcceleRacers ending, and them taking like, I forgot how big the gap is between AcceleRacers and Battle Force 5, but it was enough for me to go, nah, I'm good. Like, I saw Vert Wheeler, and I was like, where's everybody else? This isn't what I was expecting to happen. Because I know it's really just gonna live.
I know it's not a continuation, but they tried to make it act like a continuation. So when you were a kid, you saw the animation, or you saw like, oh, the cars are transforming now, and it's like,
yeah. I didn't even bother watching a single episode. I saw the commercials on it. I saw Vert Wheeler, and I went, that's not Vert Wheeler. And I just immediately checked out. It wasn't even the fact that none of the other characters were there. I just went, that's not Vert Wheeler. I know that this isn't the same thing, so I'm just going to ignore it. And I did. And I still, to this day, know nothing about Battle Force 5, minus that it's like a multiverse thing, and that's not Vert Wheeler, and then the cars are also Transformers. So that's all I know about Battle Force 5, and frankly, that's all I care to know about Battle Force 5. And I know that they're doing more cartoons and stuff on Netflix, but I just don't care.
Yeah.
I just don't care anymore.
The only thing that would make me care is, honestly, if they just announced, like, hey, we're doing movie 5 to tie up every loose end or whatever. But that's it. And even then, I think I would be very careful, because those 4 movies are so stinking special to, I think, all of us, especially just how perfect they are, and in the way that the characters are, the way that the characters are motivated, the way that the characters act, the way that the cars are. Like, they made cars super cool for kids because, you know, when you're a child, you don't really know a lot about cars because you're not driving them yet. And so the best that, you know, like the way that I loved cars was when you did them in these super complex tracks, and that's why Highway 35 was so cool to me. Like, oh my gosh, they're jumping over lava, or they're jumping through a loop. That's why Speed Racer was so cool to me as a kid. Like, oh, it's a roller coaster track, you know, it was so cool. And so I don't know, I feel like if they tried to bring it back, I would still be very much like, all right, you know, you got one shot at it.
I would be open to a continuation, but I can tell you right now that everybody would hate it, regardless of how it's made, how it's done. I think it's one of those things where it's such an impossibility on like a hype level to live up to the expectations. And it's very unfortunate to say that, because I mean, frankly, if Mattel was like, "Hey, we're doing AcceleRacers 5," I would still be like, "That's freaking cool. You guys are very late to the party, but you know what? Let's let it rock. Let's see what happens." But I feel like it would be like you know, a video game that's been in like production for, I don't know, like 8 years or something. Like let's talk about Concord, right? Like a decade of, you know, expectations and hype, and what happens? It comes out down the toilet, right?
It wasn't Twisted Metal. That's the problem.
Exactly, that's the problem. But yeah, no, and like, you know, I think, yeah, this was said where there was gonna be car armor anyways for AcceleRacers 5. At least that's what
Yeah, like they said they was gonna like transform and fly. I think like a few things too, like Banji from the World Race was gonna be revealed to not have died. He was gonna
be a silencer.
Yeah, and then one more, Vert's friend from the first movie.
Yeah, yeah. There was oh my god,
I forget.
What's his face? There's another one. I forget his name. I promise you, I watched all of these movies. I swear to God, I did.
It's been a while.
It's the guy in Highway 35 who, when Kurt turned evil, he became the unofficial leader of the street breed.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. But he's
that
like
he's
in the movie for like 2 seconds. I don't blame you for.
He is in the movie for 2 seconds, but if you count his screen time in potentially AcceleRacers, he's in it for a little bit longer. But that was another one that I heard that he was a silencer too, and I mean, like, I like that too, and I mean, I feel like it makes the most logical sense too, because even my like 7-year-old brain was like, did Banji Castile die in this realm? When I saw Ignition, I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have a nightmare about that too. The racing drones killed Banji.
Can we talk about how dark that series is in actuality for kids?
Dude, it's so great. I love it, and I think that's what a lot of TV shows are missing nowadays. And I think that I don't know if it's an executive thing or I don't really know what it is, but I feel like whenever I watch a cartoon or a series now that kind of was similar to an older show that it is just completely different now. Like I mean, I'll even give you know, Teen Titans versus Teen Titans Go, right? That's my obvious comparison, right? Clearly they're made for two different audiences, but back in the day, it was made for a younger audience, but a lot of the darker themes can just go over your head. Like to me, and this is just my own personal opinion, kids are stupid. So they're not going to pick up on the themes of, oh, Dr. Tesla almost just died, or, oh, this deal that Kurt and Mark were doing was actually a drug deal. Like, no one, like, I'm stupid. I didn't know that was insinuated until, like, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where I was reading, like, a Reddit comment or something, and I was like, oh, that makes sense. They're very vague about what this deal is. And that's just a really funny thing, that it's like, it could be true, it could not be true. Yeah. But as you grow older and you think about it more and more, it's like, oh yeah, they were probably selling drugs, and that's just, it flies over you as a kid because you don't really think about those things. It's like when you're watching a movie that has very subtle adult humor that flies over the kids' heads, but the parents will still enjoy it too. Like, you watch Shrek, or I'm trying to think of another one off the top of my head that kind of, Incredibles is another one, actually. That sort of thing. Like, that's what TV shows are kind of missing nowadays, in my opinion, is the family dynamic of, you can go a little bit darker with the themes by making it not so in your face. It's very subtle, and I just feel like entertainment back in the day was just better because of that. And like, especially like with me growing up in that sort of era of 2000s to like mid 2010s sort of entertainment, and you can actually kind of see that shift with going from AcceleRacers to something like Battle Force 5, where it feels a lot more colorful. I'm assuming that it's more geared towards a like younger audience, but I feel like and this is just kind of, I was about to say, I don't necessarily want to like name drop or anything, but I know somebody personally who worked on the Batman Beyond TV show.
Really?
As well as like some of the other like that sort of generation of Warner Brothers cartoons. But he gave me a lot of insight as to kind of what the happenings were of, like why the shows were as dark as they were, and what was the studios like kind of pushing back on, that sort of thing. And I feel like creators maybe just had a little bit more control over the media that they were actually given. And then nowadays it's more like the executives are kind of like, oh no, it has to be done this way exactly, and there can't be any deviation, that sort of thing. And a lot of projects are, in my opinion anyways, they're better because of the creators have that freedom to actually express themselves and then the media that they're going through, versus like a studio mandate like Concord.
Yeah.
Like take Astrobot and take Concord, two completely separate things. Like, I know, but that's really the main difference. One was made with passion and love for PlayStation, the video game industry, etc., and then the other one was made because Overwatch did very well.
Yeah, no, I agree with everything that you technically said. I don't think that you necessarily need adult humor and stuff, but I do agree with darker storylines or more adult themes, as in terms of like The Incredibles you mentioned. There's that undertone of divorce or a family falling apart, kind of, that you don't see as a kid. As a kid, it's a fun superhero movie, but then as you get older, you understand it more. Like Ellen thinks that Bob is cheating on her.
Bob is cheating on him, yeah.
I like AcceleRacers because it still plays with that. You were talking about the deal that goes south with Mark and Wild. No, wait. Yeah, Kurt and Wild. Mark was Wild, or Wild was Mark.
Technically, they're both Wild, so you were technically correct.
Exactly.
That.
But like, I like that there's that subtle deal, and then there's consequences of that. Like, he was this happy-go-lucky kid. He went to jail. He became super buff in the process, and then kind of a jerk. And then he had to slowly find himself again throughout the series, because in the beginning, he's like the most insane metal maniac, and then as you see, he's just kind of like that scared little kid that's trying to prove himself in the groups, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly, and especially considering that that Tone let him win.
Yeah,
like that's the other thing. So Tone, unfortunately, not Tone. What the hell am I talking about?
Taro, right?
Yeah, no, not Taro. Oh my God.
We can cut that. Cut that.
Yeah, Torque. It was Torque. I knew it was right there. Tone. Okay. Side note. Mattel. You name Nolo's brother Tone, but you name the leader of the Metal Maniacs Torque. Come on. Anyways, that was my bad. But yeah, no, Torque let him win. That's the other thing. So he kind of enabled that, not enabled that behavior. There was a reason for it, but yeah, it just no, I agree. Like Mark, it's so interesting how we went from Highway 35, where it was really more Vert's story, but then in AcceleRacers, you have the dynamic between Nolo and not Tone, Torque, and the Wild Brothers. But what I like is that because of that, that's the thing that feeds the conflict with all of the other drivers.
Exactly.
Like
it's so good.
Like Porkchop and Scirocco is like just comic relief, stupid silly. But like, would Porkchop really hate Scirocco that much if Torque and Nolo just weren't beefing with each other? Like that's the thing. And then Vert's just there. Vert's just there.
Yeah, he's kind of got
Karma's there.
He's kind of got like his own storyline with Tesla. And I like that, where he's kind of not like he's still trying to prove himself, his worth after Highway 35, because like he was made the best of the best. He was told he was the best, even though he kind of won, not necessarily by chance, but like Highway 35, almost everyone had the opportunity to win necessarily. Unlike AcceleRacers.
And then in the comics, Banji won.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
That's the other thing. So
I like that he's always trying to prove himself, and he keeps failing, but he gets back up, and like he wants to prove himself, even though he walks away for like the one movie, and then he comes back, and then he actually proves himself as being the greatest driver in the world.
Yeah, and I think what I really like about Vert Wheeler is that he does kind of feel like an everyman too.
Mm-hmm.
He's our the vessel into the world where we can relate to having the problems of like imposter syndrome, or am I really good enough to be with all of the rest of these people? And I feel like for the most part, every driver is kind of on the same level. Like obviously there's some that are better than others. Taro. But Vert is like, you know, he's up there, but he's just making a bunch of he's making mistakes that are very easy to make when you know
he overthinks a lot in the series.
Yeah, he overthinks and he overlooks a lot of things as well. And it's like, not every driver is going to be perfect. Like, everybody failed the Swamp Realm, except for Nolo. Mm-hmm. And the reason why Nolo won was because of something that Tone told him right before Tone exited the series.
Yeah.
And you know, like, and that's actually what I really like about AcceleRacers too, kind of going off that, is every single realm had a lesson for you.
Yes.
And as you know, I'm assuming that you drive. I'm assuming that most people who are going to be watching this also drive. There are a lot of rules in the road that you need to pay attention to. You're not going to pay attention to literally everything. That's impossible. It's like when you know, you get stopped by a cop and he's like, "Hey, did you know that you were violating this really particular thing?" And you're like, "No. What the heck, dude?" And then you get a ticket for it. You have to pay $100 at the courthouse, and then you never make that mistake again. It's like, that's basically what happens in the racing realms. You have one specific lesson that the realm is focused on, and if you mess up, you die.
Yeah.
Granted, the stakes are a little bit higher, but that's, you know, that's the the price to pay when you're just that good at racing, I guess.
I like that it was the next test, because they always kept saying like, "Oh, this is the next chapter of what the Accelerons, like Tesla's going crazy," and he's like, "This is like the next thing," and stuff like that. I like that, like Highway 35 was kind of like the lessons that were really small, for more of the kids side of things, like teamwork. How have your tires affected on different kinds of tread? And then when you come to AcceleRacers, it's a lot more deeper things, like finding the apex of a turn, drafting with your teammates, finding the groove. How are your tires affected on ice or water? So like you what is it called? Don't oversteer and stuff like that.
Yeah, you don't oversteer.
Yeah.
Also, if I could interrupt for a second, because I just had this fleeting thought the other day. Chat. How did Vert do the pipeline realm when he was by himself? How did he pass the lesson in that realm when it was just him and Galora?
I don't know.
How did he do it?
What was the lesson in the pipeline realm?
Drafting.
Drafting was that one?
That was the lesson. Yeah, you had to draft.
Okay.
In order to go faster down the pipeline. And that's also shown at the end too, because all of the silencers are drafting with each other. Because and I always thought when I was a kid, I thought it was really weird that they had like the fans.
The fans, yeah, and it ends up being because
I thought it was I thought it was so weird. I was like, that's such an odd thing to place there. Like it was just like a design thing. But then when I got older, I was like, oh, they're supposed to draft there, and they're all drafting. That's how they get out. How the hell did Vert Wheeler?
I don't know.
The Accelerons are grading Vert Wheeler's tests, and they're like, all right, I guess I'm gonna have to him now.
It was constantly changing, so maybe it was one of those things where he didn't necessarily learn the test there. It was more so like avoid the obstacles that were coming. I don't know. I'm sure there's some logical choice somewhere you can
The Accelerons were like, oh, well, since you're swell and I really don't want the scary robot lady to be an Acceleron, I'll just let you pass this test.
Yeah.
Imagine if on that one technicality, he didn't let Vert become an Accelerator. He's like, this driver knew all of the lessons, except he didn't know how to draft in the pipeline realm. And Vert's like, what the heck, dude? Like, did you expect me to draft with Galorum? Like, what's that about?
Yeah.
And then Galorum blew up the Earth because Vert Wheeler didn't have a partner to draft with him.
Yeah, I mean, I love all like the realms and stuff because they're so unique. With the first movie, it was really interesting when I was learning about this, when I was doing my research. And the reason the first movie doesn't have that many unique locations that as much as AcceleRacers doesn't is because you know how like the first one it's like, oh, it's a lava world, it's an ice world, it's the jungle world, like kind of like cool, but like it's more so like just kind of it was because
it's very basic.
It was because they used Barbie movies to keep the cost down. So they used the exact same animation and the worlds that they created for Barbie's movies for Hot Wheels to keep the cost down. So that was really interesting to learn about. But they then basically took it to the next level with AcceleRacers with so many good ideas.
I have to really quickly see which Barbie movie had lava effects.
I have no idea. That's the thing. But like Jeff Gomez said it himself, so I mean.
So I see. Well, that doesn't make any sense because this was released in 2015. But there is like a screenshot of Barbie and somebody on top of like a lava thing. Now I just want to know. I'm just curious which Barbie movie had the flaming lava dream set.
Yeah, I have no idea, but I thought that was like the coolest thing ever because Jeff Gomez, he came from a video game developing background kind of. He was in charge of like he was in charge of like Turok and Turok 2, like a lot of the early N64 games. And so he gave the idea to Mattel and he was like, hey, you know, a lot of these stories that I have, it would be great for animation. We could make a movie possibly. And they're like, you know, it's expensive. And then he's like, well, why don't we just do what we do with video games where we bring over assets from other movies? He's like, why don't we just do that with the Barbie movies? And they were like, this man's a genius.
Yeah. Honestly, like really good for him for honestly, first of all, quick thinking on that part. But I also feel too that like for the basic concept of it, like it's almost like World Race is kind of like the first draft of what you want to do, and then once it succeeds, you can use that as the blueprint to tell, you know, the bigger company and Mattel like, hey, this was super successful. If you give us more money, we'll make even more of these things. And actually, I think it's unfortunate that apparently AcceleRacers didn't really sell as well as I guess they were hoping. I remember reading on Reddit, like, the big thing was that or the talk was that Hot Wheels was worried that AcceleRacers would become more powerful than Hot Wheels.
There was a lot of conflicting information on that, so I just went with that on my video, because you'd have like 5 guys saying this and 5 guys saying this, and it's like, I don't know, guys. It's like Jeff Gomez will say something here, the creator of AcceleRacers will say something here, this Reddit post will say this week. It was all over the place.
Yeah, I feel like maybe it could. I mean, I think the truth kind of would lie somewhere in the middle. Like, if AcceleRacers isn't selling as well as they thought that they would, maybe they were afraid that if it was selling too well, then they would have to rebrand. Or, oh, maybe if we make the next Hot Wheels thing, nobody is going to want to buy it because it's not like AcceleRacers. Like me. I stopped buying Hot Wheels toys because AcceleRacers was gone, and I just moved on to playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And other video games and stuff like that. And I mean, I could totally see it from that point of view also. And just, I don't know. Like, I think the other thing, too, is, you know, NDAs, that's a huge thing, I feel. And I'm actually really surprised that they were coming out and saying those types of things, like, you know, like, oh, Mattel was worried that Hot Wheels was gonna like explode and kill Hot Wheels, right? Like, that's, I feel like if, I don't know if he had signed an NDA or however long it would last or whatever, like, I don't know. It's one of those things where I feel like when you really think about it, it sounds absolutely ridiculous. But I think there may be some truth to it. There should be some truth to, you know, it just didn't sell as well, and that's the simple answer. I mean, that's why Young Justice got canceled after the 2 seasons, because the toys weren't selling as well, and the toys were also being sold to the wrong demographic. Like, you know, girls were buying them, and of course that's a problem because, you know, Warner Brothers can't take girl money for their superhero shows. They have to take boy money because they clearly know the difference between the two. And that's the kind of stupid thing that I'm like, yeah, no, I feel like the biggest cause for the decline in, you know, cartoons and entertainment and stuff like that isn't because of the creators, it's because of the higher ups, because, you know, metrics and demographics and selling toys, because that's really what it's all about, frankly. So I can see,
I'm not sure really like what the true story is. It's always going to probably change until like someone just officially comes out with like the full statement. They come up with backing evidence of everything. Because on one hand, it makes sense where if they weren't making money as much as Highway 35, because Highway 35 made them bank.
yeah.
But if they weren't making as much money, that makes sense as to cancel it. At the same time, it does make sense where if it was getting more popular than their own traditional Hot Wheels brand, that makes sense to a certain degree because they wanted to save, you know, the franchise that has been there for, you know, 35 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Than the franchise that has been there for only 7 years or 5 years, however long, you know, the AcceleRacers had been at that point.
Yeah, and they just couldn't have the foresight to just, you know, just clearly separate the two, or like, you know, or even just finish it. Like, that's, and I know that that's the biggest point of contention, and I feel like I want to say that I feel like if it had a conclusion, it probably wouldn't be as talked about as it is like today. I feel like it would still be like very popular, and there'd still be that like that niche of AcceleRacers, but I feel like it has gotten as popular as it is now, like popular in the sense of like, you know what I'm saying, because it didn't have a definitive ending, and people back in the day, like, more people watched it, more people were like, oh, this was actually a really cool thing, and newer audiences can get introduced to it by, you know, watching our type of videos, or, you know, they just do more research, or, you know, the AcceleRacers collaborations in the new video games are like, what the heck is an AcceleRacer? And then they Google that, and that's how they find out, that sort of thing. And kind of like what we were saying earlier, I feel like if they had decided to continue with it now, I just think that everybody would find some reason to hate it, because I feel like, and I don't know about you, but I feel like from what I've seen, most people, and even like kind of myself to a certain degree, have sort of like fantasized about what the ending of AcceleRacers could potentially be, or what we want to interpret it to be. And I feel like no matter what, our expectation is not going to live up to the height of what the reality of it would be.
That's what I said in my video, because like my dad got super into the series with me. And so he would even be like, you know, like, hey, like what if this happened, or what if this happened with Porkchop, or like he won you know, a race, or if all of a sudden like every single racer went to go race with the Accelerons or whatever, because they all were worthy, because they technically went through all the realms together or whatever.
They were all worthy because they knew how to draft in the pipeline.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. It's one of those things where it's like, after so many years of it being gone, I honestly, I would be excited if like they announced like, oh yeah, AcceleRacers 5, or if all of a sudden there'd be like little buzzing bees of like little bits of like, hey, remember this show that we used to do back in the day? You know, we've been kind of talking about it. It's like, oh, that'd be exciting. But then when it actually like gets in your hands, it'd be like, all right, now that we actually have it, it's like, didn't really need to be made, to be honest.
Yeah. Do you want to know what my experience with that is?
What?
Young Justice.
Oh, okay.
Young Justice. So I'm not sure if this is a hot take, by the way. First of all, I love Young Justice. Season 1, Season 2 of Young Justice, that's my jam. Jesse McCartney as Nightwing, love the guy. Season 3 of Young Justice, when it got canceled and brought back, was so cool. And it was so awesome to see like the continuing arc of all of the characters from Season 3. But towards the end of Season 3, and even like throughout it, you could tell that it wasn't really the same show. Like, obviously the animation style was different. It looked like the budget got sliced in half, and there were a lot of things that were made that just it felt very modernized, if that makes sense. And then Season 4, in my opinion, was a dumpster fire, and I hated it. I hated the whole season. And if they eventually come out with the Season 5, I'm probably just not going to watch it, just straight up. But to me, that's kind of why I think that AcceleRacers wouldn't really do as well if it had potentially came back, because it's a different time. Companies are completely different now than what they were, 20 years ago. And even a short distance of just, talking about Warner Brothers and DC, of just like approximately like 8 to 10 years or whatever the difference was. If you watch Season 1 and 2 of Young Justice, it is night and day from Season 3. Like, you can tell that there's like hints to the old show in terms of just like how it's presented and the style and just how all the characters interact. But there's that underlying tone of it feels different enough to where you can clearly tell that maybe like the team was different, or obviously the animation style is like, it's almost like they had to like copy the original, if that makes sense. And I feel like, let's say like hypothetically speaking, AcceleRacers 5 is announced today. Would it have the same animation style as it did back in the 2000s, or would they update it exactly? So it would, even if they kept the big shoes and just like updated the models or whatever, it would just look too jarring. It would just be I don't know. I feel like it wouldn't really hit as well. I feel like people would complain about the animation. People would complain about...
It would be hard because there's not a style to the animation. It's just kind of... It was good animation for the time. I will stand by that. For a 3D animated early 2000s movie, it holds up immensely. Even World Race does.
Yeah.
I would say the cars are a lot better in World Race compared to AcceleRacers, like how they drive and stuff. I feel like there's a lot more power in World Race compared to AcceleRacers shots and stuff with the cars. But
yeah,
there's really no style. With The Incredibles 2, that was super cool that they had like almost the exact same animation style. Like the Bob's ears were still square. A lot of the characters were still built like hourglass figures, or Bob was still a really chunky individual. I don't feel that with AcceleRacers, so you would either have to totally update it, and that would get backlash, or, you know, I don't know what they would do, honestly. It's just kind of like it's animation from the time. There's really no style to it.
Yeah, and I think, again, the problem with a new AcceleRacers would be that Mattel would have complete control over it. And that's what I just think would, that's why I think it wouldn't work. I feel like, you know, the people who just made AcceleRacers didn't really have a whole lot to answer to. It almost felt like they could do whatever they wanted. And, you know, insert drug deal analogy here.
Have a guy get his arm chopped off and replaced with a robot arm. Have Pork Chop trauma dump on Monkey about how his dad died when he was a little boy and how he's afraid of water.
Exactly. I would love to see them like do a test screening with the president of Mattel, and Pork Chop's just talking about the drowning, and the guy's like sitting there like,
what have we done?
It's like, are we still good with this? Are we still good? It's like when James Gunn and Chris Pratt were sitting in on the test screening when Kevin Feige for Guardians 3, and Chris Pratt drops the F-bomb. Like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Just waiting to hear what the reaction is. But
I have no idea how you even bring this back. Now, like, it's interesting the way that they're doing it because they acknowledge that the fans are there. They've done it through stupid ways. Now, some ways I like they've done the DLC with Hot Wheels Unleashed 1 and 2. They had the Diora 2, I think, in like a Forza game recently. And most recently, they've done the NFT stupid stuff with all the cars and stuff. Who cares about that? They know we're there.
I'm very proud of my NFT joke, by the way.
What was your?
At the very end of my video, I was referencing all the things that they were doing, and I was like, and they even made Hot Wheels NFTs. like that's such an odd thing to do. Like that's what? But so stupid. I'm not gonna get into that.
I'm not either. It's interesting. It's like, do you do a video game with a small budget and maybe that brings back some fans or some attention to it? Maybe have that be the next Hot Wheels video game. Do you have the live action movie, which has been in development now for almost 2 decades? Do you have that be the AcceleRacers live action and you start that off? Or, you know, do you do movie 5 or do you do a comic book? I know JC Squared wanted to do a comic book.
I feel like a comic book would probably be the best way to do it. I think that would be, just from my idiot brain, I feel like it would be the least expensive. That would probably be the first thing. I think that they'd have more control over it because if it doesn't do well, it's a comic book. Mm-hmm. Who cares, right? You can choose to ignore it if you really feel like it. Whereas something like an animated film, like I feel like if they did an animated film and it bombed, they'd have to acknowledge it as canon. So you have to acknowledge that this is what happened. And if you played Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League, you know how great of an idea that is. Anyways, so I feel like a comic book would be the best way to do it. And I know that Danny Phantom is either doing something like that or he did something like that where there was a continuation through a comic book.
Batman 89 did it recently with Tim Burton's Batman. They did like a continuation of that Batman with a comic book.
Yeah, I feel like that would just be the most logical way to do it, you know, and then the diehard fans can buy it and acknowledge it as canon, and then those who don't want to, you know, pick up a book can just ignore it, right? Like, or you just look on Reddit or look on the internet or whatever, and you look at the story of what happened to the Wikipedia, and it's like, oh, this is what happened, that's cool, and then you just kind of move on from there. But yeah, the diehard fans would be there, but like, I don't know how much it was to make the original AcceleRacers movies, but I'm assuming that it would be
Fairly cheap. I mean, for nowadays, at least.
Yeah, and that's why I feel like if they made it with the same style that they did before, I feel like it could work because it wouldn't be as expensive to make, but also would they want to commit to the older style versus like maybe updating the models a little bit? Obviously marketing is a huge thing too, so I don't know. It's a very interesting conversation, and
the problem that I have is that it was such a mic drop of an ending. Like, oh, Vert Wheeler's dad gets announced as the silencer. It was such a mic drop ending where everyone's got their own idea and own story, so it'd be disappointing on that level, as we discussed. But then it's been gone for so long, and this isn't something where it's like Beetlejuice, where it's like it was a cult classic. It developed even more fans over time. Nowadays, we've got like Top Gun Maverick or Twisters, these, what are they called, legacy sequels that are doing surprisingly well for the most part and can be a lot of fun. This one is, I don't know, it's just really niche, and it's been gone for so stinking long. It's like you put your hands up and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a niche within a niche.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. Like Hot Wheels itself is already niche-ish, right?
Nowadays, yes. I would say in the early 2000s, no. Nowadays, yeah, I don't really see anyone collecting Hot Wheels or kids at least getting excited over Hot Wheels.
If this is how I tell if something is niche or not. I looked on Reddit, and the Hot Wheels Reddit has 159,000 members.
That's not a lot for a franchise that has been here for a long time.
Exactly. So, what happens if I look up Beetlejuice? Is there a Beetlejuice subreddit?
I have no idea.
just to prove my point, I think it would be really funny. I mean, Beetlejuice has 16,000.
Yeah.
But there's also oh, never mind. That's something different. There was something called Beetlejuicing, and that has 497,000. So I was like, oh, what's this? But it's like, is when one user posts a comment or thread on Reddit and another user with a username relevant to the parent comment or thread responds. So, I mean, my point was just thrown out the window, but how many Reddit users are on AcceleRacers? Well, AcceleRacers is 17,000.
Yeah. So it's
like
a niche
said,
compared to Hot Wheels as a whole.
What about Battle Force 5?
Probably even more niche.
Take a guess. Take a guess.
Probably not even 10.
352.
1,000?
No. just 352.
That's
amazing. So my point was made earlier. I was like, yeah, after AcceleRacers, I just didn't care about Hot Wheels anymore, and apparently a lot of people joined me on that cause.
Mm-hmm.
but anyways, that's just what I do. How many? Now I'm on Reddit, and I'm like, oh, how many is Young Justice? Young Justice is at like 68.
So
68,000.
then let me ask you this: we have this live-action movie coming out. Barbie did, I think, more numbers than anyone ever expected. I know I went into that movie, and when I walked out, I was like, there's no way this movie makes over 500 million, and then it broke $1 billion and became the highest grossing movie of the year, outgrossing Super Mario Brothers. Mattel is definitely going to do Hot Wheels after success like that. Mm-hmm. What do you think they do?
Let's see. Off the top of my head, they get Tom Holland to play as Vert Wheeler. That's the first thing.
They gotta blonde him up first.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like they did that in a movie already. Did they not? Maybe I'm thinking of something else. No. So I think that oh God. So here's the thing. So with Barbie, I have to present the elephant in the room, which is how successful would Barbie have been if the Barbenheimer thing didn't happen.
See,
I still feel like it would have done what. Like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, Barbie had the box office break of like I don't know how much it sold off the top of my head, but I know that it sold a lot. But part of me thinks that it's like, okay, is it because people actually wanted to go see the Barbie movie? Excuse me. Or was it like this chance coincidence of Barbie and Oppenheimer coming out at the same time? And it really was an experience to see both.
I really have
and everybody
no idea when it comes to that, because there's people that really hate the movie and there's people that still really like the movie. It's kind of a mix. It's not like the movie kind of came and went. It's still like people love it and people hate it.
Yeah. It's like I mean, I don't know. I feel like because I saw the Barbie movie and I thought it was I thought it was good. It was good in the sense that it felt like it was trying to do its own thing, like its own commentary, and I'm trying to find the
I
the
liked
right
the
way to phrase
beginning
this.
when it was like all in plastic land and stuff. Like I thought that was kind of like cute. Like it's like, oh, it's kind of like over the top and stuff. I didn't like it when it went to the real world and stayed there. But I mean, if they can do something like that for Hot Wheels where it's like over the top and stuff, like the tracks are all orange and stuff like that, it's not like a Need for Speed movie situation where it's like, we're going to have the most gritty and realistic take on Hot Wheels. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that so it's a tough one because again, and I will fully disclose, I haven't seen Battle Force 5. I haven't seen anything that the other like Hot Wheels media have done. I've just seen World Race and I've just seen AcceleRacers, but I like the idea that the racers are in a realistic world where they have, like advanced cars or whatever, but then this guy makes the Hot Wheels cars and they have to get transported to a different world where they have all of these unique tracks with the ice and the fire and the jungle themes like that sort of thing. And I like that idea a lot more than maybe a whole world that has all of the different stuff built into that world, because then you have that juxtaposition of, oh, you have these really futuristic cars that can fly, that have the cha-ching thing on the front of Taro's car, the saws, like, whatever, right? Like they have all that stuff, but they live in a world where right across from Walmart is a giant Tyrannosaurus Rex that you have to drive up and then go out of its mouth, like that sort of thing, right? I think it just worked a lot better in like almost like the reverse of like, oh, the Smurfs are in their own world and then they find a portal and they go to the real world. I just like the idea of, oh, you have these really good street racers and then here's a portal and oh my god, there's a giant dinosaur. Like I like that idea a lot more. And I feel like, honestly, if Mattel was just like, hey, why don't we just remake World Race, but we made it live action?
That's what I want.
I think that would be fine. I would totally be fine if there was just a straight up live action remake of World Race. I crapped on the Lion King live action remake, but I would totally get behind Hot Wheels AcceleRacers and World Race being live action in that sense. And it doesn't have to be beat for beat. Like, we don't need a Vert Wheeler or anything like that. But if they decided to go that route, I just think it sold well 20 years ago. It would totally sell well now, especially with CGI and like the realistic graphics, that sort of thing. And like, literally just pull from the same lessons that World Race did, and that's fine. Like, and I say that in a world where I am very sick of remakes, of live action remakes, of video game remakes, I'm starting to get the remake fatigue a little bit. But I would not mind seeing a trailer of Hot Wheels Highway 35 World Race, but with live action. Like, I would totally be down for that, because I feel like that would also just feed the community of people who loved Hot Wheels, Highway 35, and AcceleRacers, and then all of the new, like, 5-year-old kids who are playing with Hot Wheels toys can go, oh my gosh, Hot Wheels, I know what that is.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Like, and then as they get older, they're gonna find, Highway 35, AcceleRacers, etc. And if they really felt like it, they could make a AcceleRacers live action. But I don't think they would go that far.
Yeah,
I think that would be a little too much.
I don't know, really. Like, I mean, I would love a live-action version of Highway 35. I think that movie is actually, like, built from the ground up to be live-action, in my opinion. The way that the characters talk, the way that the shots are. There's nothing too complex that is, like, this only has to be animation. It's like, yeah, sure.
Exactly.
If you want to take your brain out, or you'd have to turn off your brain a little bit to be like, okay, there's portals and stuff. But it's like, it's built for live action, in my opinion, that first movie. And the only thing that really turns me off of the movie is the fact that J.J. Abrams has his grubby little hands on it. I hate that man more than any other director, producer, whatever he's done in the industry. And he has his hands now on Speed Racer and Hot Wheels, and I'm like...
Yeah, I see the Star Wars hat that you're wearing.
Well, no, it's not even that. I just don't like that he's ruined too many franchises, even Star Trek. Like, once he did his first Star Trek movie,
okay, yeah.
That's when, like, Star Trek started to go down the toilet. It's like every single franchise except for Mission Impossible that he's touched has just been, like...
Gotcha. I see what you mean, yeah. No, I understand that. And I think, like, I agree that I think that it is built to be, like, a perfect live-action movie. But again, what do the higher-ups want?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily about what we want. It's about what they want. And that's, like I said, it's about, I think that creators work the best when they're allowed to create the things that they want.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why... YouTubers are as successful as they are or as happy as they are because they're creating the content that they want to create. And, whether or not, like, you get $10,000 from a video or, like, $5 from a video, you're still satisfied with what you did. But I feel like that would be the kind of person that I would want to direct and write a Hot Wheels movie. Somebody who actually has a vision for what they want and somebody who actually cares about that franchise and is able to understand what makes it so special. And I feel like with World Race and AcceleRacers, that's what they knew. Like, that's what they knew what to do. And I like I said, I can't speak for Battle Force 5, but even just like the first trailer that I saw where I was like, oh, transforming cars. Why are the cars transforming? This is so silly in my opinion. And it's just like, I feel like that kind of took away from the driving aspect of it, of what made AcceleRacers and Highway 35 so successful. Because why sell car action figures when you can sell car action figures and actual action figures, like that sort of thing? Because that's really what it also boils down to anyways, is, and especially for toy companies, is like, well, what can we do to sell the most toys, That's why Spider-Man has like 7 suits in his last movie. The black and gold, on a completely unrelated note, and my audience knows this, I hate the black and gold suit more than...
Which one? The one for the video game that he had, or the one in the movie where he like turns it inside out?
That one.
Okay.
I hate that suit with a burning passion in my being, because it is the prime example of the didn't ask, didn't need, super unnecessary suit, and the only reason that it's in the movie is because they need to sell toys. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the only reason why it's in the movie. It's in there for maybe 2 scenes, and then that's it. They had to come up with a reason for his shirt to go, or for his suit to go inside out. And anyways, I'm not gonna. I've ranted enough about that suit, but that's the point. Like, the whole point of that suit was to sell toys, mm-hmm. and the whole point of any big company is to make money and to sell toys. So, that's what I would want from a live action Hot Wheels movie, though, is, yeah, like, make the cars, sell the toys, whatever, but also give us a story that actually has meaningful lessons and gives us cool action and cool characters. Like, don't just, it shouldn't be a movie that you just play to sit your kids in front of the TV for like 2 hours while you go and do something. Like, you should be able to sit down and watch it with them and still enjoy it. And I feel like, you know, when I eventually have like small children of my own, I'm gonna watch AcceleRacers with them. That's just how it's gonna be. And I know they're gonna enjoy it. I know I'm gonna enjoy it because I love the series so much. Even my fiance, who is she's the same age as me, she likes AcceleRacers. I introduced her to the series, and I taught her how to drive well using the lessons from AcceleRacers. And I cannot fib that. We were I told this story in my video, but we were driving on the road, and she had to make an addendum to me afterwards. She was like, I wasn't swerving on the road. And I was like, I'm not talking about like this swerving, but like, you know, she like moved to the side a little bit like this, and you'd hit like the ramp, not the ramps, but like the grooves on the side, right?
No.
Or like that's which is just like how it is, right? Just, you know, we've all done it at one point or another. And I told her to stay in the groove. Like, there's the road, just relax, stay in the groove, and just go straight. And then she did. And you know, I taught her about hydroplaning and you know, all of the other necessary skills that you needed to pass the driving test, basically. I didn't have to teach her about drafting, thank God.
It was funny when you were going through like because I mean, we're probably close to the same age, but like when we were going through driver's education, a lot of them, like, I already like knew like immediately what like the answer was because of Hot Wheels.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, that's how I knew what hydroplaning was. And, you know, even now, I remember it was a couple years ago. I was listening to, I don't know, I was just listening to some music or whatever, and it was like a really, really bad storm, and I could feel myself hydroplaning, so I shut the music off and, like, you know, gripped 10 and 2, and I was just like, nope, I'm not gonna accelerate, I'm just gonna keep going straight, like, just eyes on the, like, I locked in, and I was totally fine. And then as I'm passing through, I'm like, okay, there's an accident over there's another accident over, like, it was bad.
You just like picture the part where like Vert's car like flies off and slams into the cliffside.
I was like, oh, hey, it's Vert Wheeler. No, I was the Taro Katano in that situation. I knew what to do. But like stuff like that. And I think out of every lesson, the only thing that I didn't really understand was hitting an apex. And I only just recently figured out exactly what that meant.
Yeah.
And I was go-karting not too long ago, and I was trying to actually hit the apex on the turn, and I was like, I don't even know if I'm doing this right because of just how it is, and it's just, anyways. But anyways, like, that's just that's why I loved that show so much, because, and it's like you said, like, as we're growing up and we're learning more about driving, those are the lessons that were taught to us when we were like 7, 8 years old. And as you grow older, like, you can apply that thing to real life. And that's really what I think makes the best media, is when you watch something and then you see something like on the news or whatever, and you go, oh, that's kind of like that movie that I watched the other day. Oh, I understand what you're trying to say now. You know, not in your face kind of messaging, but like the very subtle stuff. And AcceleRacers was perfect for that, for the driving lessons. And what's the first lesson that you learn? It's the most obvious one. Stay focused on the road and don't get distracted. Otherwise, what's going to happen?
The Storm Realm's gonna get you.
Yeah, you're going to slam into the car. Kurt is going to do the most overdramatic crash in history. And then the racing drones are going to win the realm because you got distracted by lightning. And I said this in my video too, and I didn't notice this until the last time that I watched it before making my video. Vert was in first. The way that the camera the way that the camera works, it's so weird because it doesn't look like he's in first at first, because I think when they're in the giant lightning ball of death and they're going super fast, I'm almost certain that the drones are ahead of them. Like when they cross, I was certain, I think if I remember correctly, that's like the drones are ahead of them and they're crossing between them. But when he gets out, I can't remember if there's a drone in front of him or not. but it cuts to the shot where the lightning's in his eye. He brakes, but then as he's braking, that's when the drone passes him. So I don't know if it was a continuity thing or not, but that was right before the crash happened and Vert broke. He started to turn, and then you see the drone go by him.
Huh.
So Vert was in first, and he would have won if he actually wasn't distracted by the lightning.
Yeah, he's kind of an awesome, like, he had so many opportunities to win in the series, and he never did. Like, if you're actually, like, count him, he could have won the Swamp Realm, he could have won the Storm Realm, he could have won, what was it? The...
Could have won the
water one, yeah.
He could have won the water realm.
And then
he also could have won the junk realm too,
yeah.
I think he was the first one there. The only difference is that he got screwed over by the silencers.
Yeah, he could have won almost every single race that he was a part of. He just, like we discussed before, like he just overthought too many things, or he just was overconfident, and
I think it's definitely more overconfidence. Because what was it? Yeah, in that same clip in the Storm Realm, he tells Kurt that he's gonna make his move as soon as they're inside the dome, but Kurt tells him to stay focused, and Vert ignores it. Like, he just says, "I can handle it." Like, he's like, stop trying to mentor me, because he got overconfident that he would be fine. But then when it hit the fan, that's the thing that messed him up, because he thought that he would be okay. Because he had the confidence, he's the best driver in the world, right? So of course he can handle this. But when it actually happened, he couldn't do it. And yeah, like I said, just overconfidence, and definitely like you said, overthinking the scenario as well. Yeah. And it's yeah, he could have won the Swamp Realm too, didn't he? Yeah, because he was the first one there.
Yeah, he was like the first in a ton of races. I think the one too he could have won was the Fire Realm, if I'm remembering correctly. Because that one was like, if you ever watch like on the DVD or whatever, there's like the little tiny episodes that like branch the movies together.
Yeah, you're right. He was first in the Fire Realm too, and then his tires overheated and Taro passed him.
And then too, the one on his motorcycle.
Oh yeah, the Ruins Realm?
Yeah, he like slammed into the giant stone creature or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then Shirako got him.
Oh, Shirako.
Yeah, he's a goober.
Yeah, Shirako was my favorite character when I was a kid.
Pork
and then
chop.
when I rewatched it,
Pork chop's
I
my
was
favorite.
like, I was like, why did I like this character so much? He's so stupid.
You know what? But
not stupid, but dull. Like, I thought he was really dull.
I will say what's interesting is, you go back on a lot of series that you watched as a kid, and a lot of them can be like cringy, or like, it's like, man, why did I like this? The characters in AcceleRacers, they're not like cringy or over the top. They're pretty normal, I would say. You have like Monkey and Porkchop, but they're still like pretty serious racers at the end of the day. Yes. They still know like how to win. Like Porkchop wins. He wins the card that like
the cavern.
Yeah,
round.
he wins the cavern round. And Monkey, I mean, he's a big scaredy cat and wuss, but like he gets to the end of most of his races.
Well, Monkey also knew to stay in the middle of the track in the Swamp Realm too. He was the first one to figure it out.
And he's the one that makes
like,
the boost formula.
Yeah. You did not stay in the groove, Porkchop.
All right, man. Closing statements.
Closing statements. So, let's see. Tom Holland for the live-action AcceleRacers movie.
Let's have it.
As Vert Wheeler. Concord was a failure.
It was.
And
PlayStation 5.
Astrobot was a success because Astrobot devs actually had the creative freedom to make what they wanted. So when Mattel decides to visit AcceleRacers 5 or the live-action Hot Wheels movie, be an Astrobot, don't be a Concorde. And
that quote should be taught in schools for generations. Don't be a Concorde, be an AcceleRacers 5.
Yeah, and make sure that you be like Vert Wheeler and you or actually don't be like Vert Wheeler in this case, because you do not want to crash your car in the water realm because you hydroplaned because you were listening to really loud music while you were driving and weren't listening to Karma.
Yeah.
Don't be like Vert.
Be
like what's
Pork
the name
Chop.
of
You
that
got to be
last
like
one?
Pork Chop.
Be like Pork Chop.
Yeah.
Be like Ultimate Race Vert Wheeler. Don't be Ignition, Speed of Silence, and Breaking Point Vert Wheeler.
Exactly. You got to be like Pork Chop. You got to have Smokey, and then you just got to bust in there and hit the button at the last second, even though you don't know if you're going to die or not, and then blow up everybody else.
And also, you should be a little bit like Scirocco, like not 100% like, just a little bit,
Just a little bit,
like 5% Scirocco, right? Just chill enough to where you can relax, but you're not aloof the entire series. Did Scirocco win any race? I don't think he. Won
I don't
a single
think he
race.
ever did. And
He was just there.
my favorite part is when he's like at the end when Pork Chop and Monkey pick him up, and he's like, "Word," and he just like starts like,
he's moving at a snail's pace to Pork Chop's car.
and Pork Chop's like muttering, and he's like,
So I can't believe they're making me do this. Scirocco was just there. He was like, "Yo, I'm getting my meals fed. I'm just racing and looking at cool fish." Like, yeah, sure.
check out all these
totally.
colors. Cool.
I'm imagining a scenario where he's putting all of that footage on his website, and everyone's like, "Oh, cool, like fish stuff," and then he gets to the cavern realm, and he's like posting the pictures of the bat creatures, or he's in the cliffside realm, and he fell off, and he's just taking a video.
Wait, that's a whole other like. Wait a minute. He had a website he was posting stuff to. Didn't like Tesla say like to keep it all secret?
He did, yeah.
So like, there's just a ton of people that know about.
Yeah, I guess there's a ton of people that know about the racing realms now.
Yeah.
I guess maybe Tesla wanted to keep the Acceledrome secret, maybe, but so he told Scirocco not to post any pictures of the Acceledrome, and he was like, "Word," and then he took a selfie with Tesla like this, and and Tesla was like, He's like, "You know what? Like, you're like one of the 10 racers.
I have
that are
no control
volunteering
over
to do
you.
This.
Get on him, Nolo.
I have no control over you. If I lose him, whatever." Like, he's like, "I don't want to lose Taro. I don't want to lose Vert. He can go. He can go to the silencers." Now I'm imagining Scirocco as a silencer. In conclusion, Scirocco should have been a silencer.
Justice for Scirocco.
Justice for Scirocco. Oh, I can also give everybody my my socials and stuff
that.
too. So
Shout yourself
I'm Antonio Redgrave on YouTube. That's basically where you'll find all my other links, but I'll give them to you guys anyways. I'm also on TikTok at Antonio Redgrave. I also stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/bfgc_Redgrave. Don't question me on why that name is different. I don't feel like telling that story today. And I think that's it.
Excellent.
Oh, and Twitter. Twitter is bfgc_Redgrave as well.
Excuse me,
don't ask
sir.
why that
It's
name is different
X. It's X.
If I still type in Twitter, it'll still take me to the same website. So I'm
man.
fine with that. I refuse to call it that stupid name.